Hello, everyone, and a warm welcome to our Wednesday live for RACE Coaching for Education. And today we have got not one, two guests with us. I'm Renu Sahor, your host for today's session. And let's start our live with these two amazing ladies. Welcome, Annabelle, and welcome, Tamara.
Thank you.
Thank you very
So,
much.
how are you? How are you today?
Great.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much for joining us. So, and let me just tell all of you a little bit about Annabelle and Tamara, and then they will take on from there. So, Tamara is a well-being uh, coach and facilitator, last 15 years, educator, and so many more hats behind her. So yeah, and Annabelle is my NLP master coach. She is artist. She is a mother of four, which she wants to. I mean, always I've seen that she has written with proudly. I think, yeah, and she also endorses the resilience model. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's start. And Tamara, can you please tell us about yourself and the work and your journey? And because we are interested in finding out what exactly you are doing in as you said, mindfulness amidst resilience. So how do you incorporate all mindfulness and resilience in education sector and everything?
Well, I think that resilience and mindfulness, they go hand in hand. Speaking specifically in the education field, if we talk about today, it's quite a different landscape for the classroom per se, and there are challenges inside and outside the classroom. And I think that resilience, it's like building a muscle. And this is a great opportunity for us to build that muscle. And mindfulness, I think, is one tool that we can use in building that muscle for resilience.
Thank you, Tamara. I just loved, as you said, resilience is a muscle which can be built. Thank you for sharing that. And Annabelle, so can you please, Annabelle, share your journey and share what you exactly do
Sure.
and all about yourself, please?
Sure. So for the past, I'm a, yeah, like you introduced, I'm a NLP practitioner, qualified teacher, and artist. I have been doing, I have been, if you like, moving around the planet for the past 25 years with my large family. And I have occupied different posts as teacher, and I have exhibited my art and presented it and organized art tours. But now, as an NLP practitioner, I'm taking the wisdom of that navigation and what I have seen to be, if you like, the gems of what helps you create that all important reference, that GPS, to help you navigate with resilience. And by resilience, I mean to overcome the intangibles like well, the stress and the so overcoming fears and phobias, but also resilience for achieving specific goals. And I really feel like over the what I have kind of what I'm bringing to the table is filtered and edited and best of those gems, and I have woven them together with the NLP tools to create the resilience model. I'm interested in how with coaching, we don't only have that amazing shift that that can happen with a good coach, but that there's something sustainable and something tangible to take away, which is why I have created the resilience model in 3 sessions, which the first session really homes in on the person's objective. The second session helps that person to tap into their strengths and align them with their values, and create with the NLP tools a model using visual kinesthetic and auditory anchors, customized and adapted to the client, just so that they have that tangible reference and model to take away. And they will take it away. Sometimes we create an artwork, but a lot of the time it just remains a visual that they can tap into. And I'm doing it with kids, teenagers, and adults, and it's phenomenal. And I'm tapping into how sustainable this model is. I'm getting feedback from my clients to find out, are they using it? And it causes a shift in the autopilot and the subconscious, and it allows you to have tools with the tools I use are up and running, and they can share them with their children, with their team at work, or with others, with friends. And I guess that's what I mean by a model and sustainable.
Thank you so much for sharing, because I was really interested in finding out a little bit more, and we'll be talking about it definitely. Welcome, Carla. Welcome to have you with us. Yeah, Carla is always there with us to help us manage the session, and yeah, with a energetic smile and her presence, it makes a lot of difference. And I was missing her definitely. So welcome.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
yeah. And Tamara, coming back to you, as you were saying that mindfulness has got many ways of building that muscle, which you're talking, which we call it as resilience. So, can you share or give us some insight into it? That how do you incorporate mindfulness to bring in resilience?
Sure. So I kind of look at resilience as a byproduct of a habit cycle that we have. It's the way how we manage stress. So whether we manage stress in a positive way, then there's resiliency there. Whether we manage it in a negative way, then there's a lack of resiliency. So I approach it from the point of view of having a trigger. So what is that trigger that you have? And then kind of like a domino effect of that trigger then leads to a thought. That thought leads to an emotion, that leads to an action, that leads to an outcome. So my approach is to interrupt that effect, to interrupt that cycle with different strategies and tools. So in terms of building the muscle, I think that mindfulness is a part of that. But um, prior to getting to the point of mindfulness, I think that it's important to be ready with tools. I think that the awareness that we're going to be triggered by something at some point in time. And if I'm speaking about education, we're talking about teachers in the classroom. We're talking about students in the classroom. We're talking about teachers who are parents at home, students who go home. So we're all triggered at different points. So the point is to be ready with tools and resources that we can have in our arsenal. So my approach is creating a self-awareness around what triggers you. And then the next step would be to change the meaning that you assign to those triggers. So if, for example, if I use myself as an example, someone yells at me, and if I normally react in a negative way and think that that's a personal attack, then obviously my resiliency, that muscle is going to be weak. But if I can change the way that I think about that interaction, then I can build how I react to that. So if I change the way I think about that, for example, I could think about the person's having a bad day. So it's no longer something I take personally, and that helps me to react differently, which gives me a different outcome. So my approach is from that angle where mindfulness becomes a tool after I'm triggered. So to get to the point of mindfulness, I then have to get grounded. So I have two strategies that I incorporate. After the trigger, I incorporate a get grounded strategy, and then a strategy to use the tools that you have. So mindfulness, for example, Carl, if I asked you about what kind of things you do to get grounded if you get stressed, what would you say you do? Yeah.
For me, it's all about smells. So I'm really into aromatherapy, and I use lavender and orange and different types of oils because they just bring me back wherever I am in my head. When I realize that I'm in my head, I come right back. And I'm also a big hot drink person. So every time I want to shift mode, I have to get myself a hot drink. And I never realized that that was grounding until I learned about grounding. And then I was like, yeah, it's all about coming back into your body and being aware of the space around you. But those are my go-to. It's aromatherapy and hot drinks. Very simple, but it works for me.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Annabelle?
For me, what would ground me? I do a lot of meditation. And I'm also working on how you can build meditation into wakeful meditation, walking meditation, if you like. And for me, being centered can be through sport. I do kite surfing, and when I'm kite surfing, I go into a place where time and space go into a different mode because I have to be concentrating on my board and my kite, or I can get into trouble. And I love the sensation of 2 solid hours of kite surfing, and I come back and I just feel like grounded, and that being in the moment, I had no choice. And I haven't consulted my phone for 2 hours. The whole world might have been trying to contact me and I would not have known about it. So the walking meditation, but otherwise breathing. And I also use a lot of visuals. I'm an artist, and it's a big part of what I do in my resilience models. So I can flip on the different anchors. It's really interesting to hear what Carla was saying about the aromatherapy, because as you know from NLP, the olfactory anchors, along with the kinesthetic, visual, and auditory, are very important. But I love the idea of aromatherapy. Yeah, it makes me want to use it more and experiment with that. So
that's awesome. Thank you. Renaud, can I ask you what you do?
Yeah, what you were asking, Tamara, you can go ahead
I was asking
and
what do you use as a grounding exercise for yourself?
yeah, for me it is sound. So I always resonate with sound or music, you can say. I'm a meditation teacher as well. So I use gong and different sound system means it can be some sort of bell or chimes or sometime the bowls, the singing bowls. So and any type of sound, even birds chirping, it just brings me to that grounding stage. I mean, it is something to do with the sound. Like I'm very auditory person. So yes.
Thank you. That's amazing. So that self-awareness of what grounds you is one of the most important things that builds resilience, I think, because before you can get into that state of building resilience, you need to be in a positive state, a grounded state. And that's the first step. And then the next step would then be the resources. So one of the resources that I use is creating or changing the internal dialogue, that self-talk that we have, right?
So amazing. It's so good to hear all these things because oh, amazing. And I do resonate with that one point which you said that tap the trigger. I mean, trigger is the first step where you have to just be observant and being aware of what exactly is starting it or triggering it. So yeah, that's it. And uh, whatever you said about grounding, that comes after that grounding. Grounding is also one of the most important thing, I think. Yes, and thanks for sharing. Yeah. Annabelle, we would love to hear a little more about your resilience model, and specifically for youth or students or the younger generation.
Yeah.
So how do you go about it? Yeah.
Well, it has, I have, you mentioned before, I have 4 children, and 3 of them have come through the secondary school system and have fired off like arrows into university. And I really used the tools from the resilience model to help. You're talking about grounding, centering, and giving them that edge of resilience. Think about what they are bombarded with, our kids. I mean, it's an intensive course. They go from that beautiful being in the present moment to catapulted into this teenage years where all of a sudden they have to, everything is quantifiable. Marks, how popular you are, how good at sport you are, whether you meet your teacher's expectations, and so a lot of the resilience model is about teaching them that at the end of the day, yes, they will have pressure to seek outside validation, and that will be the case. And it's like an intensive course in needing to learn this fact, and you'll never finish learning it enough. But the resilience model shows them with some really essential tools how to get that edge of resilience for exams, for focus, for concentration. I've had my kids had to stand up and present the whole program in 10 minutes of oral exam, and 3 years of learning has sort of added up in an exam that lasts for 10 minutes, where they stand in front of a jury of 3 people. How much resilience do you think you need for that? So, of course, I imparted with those tools, and I was able to get their feedback on how they worked and to fine-tune them and to really get my resilience model up and running. One of my areas I'm passionate about, young people. But one thing that's core in the resilience model is that it gives you that reference point, that GPS, where you are able to access resources from within, inside you. It's really talking about that muscle that Tamara mentioned. I so agree. It's mental gym. It teaches you how, and it's a neurological fact that by practice and doing it again and again and becoming familiar with it, it gets built into your neurological hardware. And I show them how, if they start to line up their resources and to access them and to build them into their mental database, into this reference with the NLP tools, rather than having them scattered all over the place in their mental database, really show them through the model. And I can only summarize in these words in this meeting, but it's fun to do, and the tools are fun. I can do it with young kids as well, 7, 8 onwards. To put it into a reference point that they can flip it up if they have an exam. They can flip it up if they need to extra focus for a difficult assignment. And they can use that muscle and start, flexing it and getting that edge. And then they have this toolkit. I call it a toolkit because once they have it up and running and working for them, it's sustainable. My kids are using the same toolkit with the same kinesthetic, auditory, and visual anchors. And hey, why not olfactory too? You're giving me ideas, Carla, about how I can reconsolidate this this model. But they have it for that all-important, these years when they're studying in the UK, in universities in the UK, and we're here, and there's COVID, So, you don't know what's ahead. So it's a model that you take on board as a school child. You get it up and running, and then you have it for life. And it teaches you to really access your resources inside, and because you don't know if you are looking for approval and ticking boxes on the outside, how sustainable is that? It is not sustainable. Those young people, they're in that platform where you can teach them that by learning to rely on their inner resources and to make them into a model which they have, like a GPS for later, toolkit that they can access at any time, then when they have the ups and downs and the lack of validation from outside, which, as you know, isn't always there, that's okay. They can navigate with that. So that I'm going to stop there because I could go on, but that is what my resilience model is about.
Yeah. Thank you, Annabelle, because this is I think, one of the most important life skills which we can give to our children to equip them for the future. And it may be one of the most important ones. Carla, what do you think about the resilience and how it can help the younger generation?
I love that. I love what Annabelle and what Tamara was saying there. And what I
Mm.
kept thinking all the way through, every time they said something and I was nodding, I was thinking about how much time we waste as parents and teachers protecting children from bad days, protecting them from mistakes, protecting them from hardship, protecting them from stress. And we try and wrap them up. And it's actually such a cruel thing to do. I'm going to stick my neck out there and say that, because it doesn't prepare them for the real world. And I don't know if it was Annabelle or Tamara said that it just changes when they get to the secondary school. So when they're little, we're telling them, oh, it's just fun, it's just a game, just take part. And then all of a sudden there's this day where it's like, it really matters. Everything matters, and we've done that without actually giving them the tools that they need to understand that A, bad days will happen, and B, there are tools that you can have that can help you to know how to respond. And Tamara said this thing that I wrote it down about triggers. It's that trigger. And if we spent less time protecting them and more time saying to them, hey, that's your trigger, and this is how you could deal with that. Those children that, for example, hate to not be first, instead of telling them things like, oh, it doesn't matter that you're not first, it's all just for the fun of it, and then suddenly changing when they get older and saying you should have worked harder and then you would have been first. We can say to them, hey, it looks like you're a person who's triggered when you're not first. So this is what you can do about that. And I think that would just be much better. It would really give them a solid grounding to be able to adapt to situations, but also to just sort of take it. It reminds me of the whole growth mindset thing, where it's just like, okay, I lost and that's part of life and I have to be ready for that. And this is what I'm going to do if it happens. Or, I didn't get the grade that I wanted in that exam, but hey, it's not the end of the world. I don't need to be devastated about that. But what I can do is I can go to these tools that I was taught. It's all about resilience. It's about bouncing back. That it just seems to make more sense and feel right to have that approach. So I think if we can do that rather than the old way, I would call it, of not giving them the tools but then expecting them to sort of understand life, it would be much better, wouldn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. That's so true, so true. Something which we need to dwell on in being in education, connected to education. So we need to dwell on that. Uh, Tamara, coming back to you, the question which comes in my mind: how do you feel that race can help? Go ahead and help in this sector, or building up life skills, or any other way you think. And what do you think about race?
I think it's an amazing platform. I really, really do. Like Carla said, if we can provide our kids with these tools, set that foundation, set the expectation, empower them, and also provide the same training. Race can service both. Provide that training for teachers as well, because they need resilience in the classroom as well. And they need to recognize that in their students as well, right? If they have the tools that they can use for themselves in the classrooms or at home, then they're able to recognize it and, share it. They're able to, um, it. I just think it's a brilliant, brilliant tool. I think that's the way forward, like you said, Carla, because race, the platform that I believe you guys, um, are yelling from the rooftops is that we are here to help. We're here to help, and it's a holistic support. And with regards to resilience, the model that Annabelle is talking about that could work for kids all the way to adults, that could be incorporated in training sessions. Um, different resources that kids can reach down to grab or reach up. It's so flexible and adaptable, and I think that's the beauty of it. It's very much it can be a group thing or individual. But the fact that you ladies were talking about how each of you know what you need to be grounded, I think that's the first step. Knowing that's that power, you're taking that power back and recognizing that. And if we can teach people that and give them back the power, then I think that muscle will be that stronger.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tamara. Thank you so much
Mm.
for sharing and bringing forward the need of the hour that what race is bringing all together. So I would come back to Annabelle with the same question that how do you think that race can go ahead and help and in building up resilience, or how do you feel that race as entity of three major key stakeholders in education like coaches and teachers and families or students. So, how do you think that it can resonate and how race resonates with you? Yeah.
Well, in so many ways. I will choose to talk about it in terms of what I can offer. Well, we're talking about resilience today. My model, the resilience model that I've put together, is a toolkit which is tangible, and you take it away and you can then have it up and running in your autopilot for yourself. But the tools are you're able to actually access them, and I always send write up of them, so the person who trains with that model can then pass it on. And this is what I'm really interested in. This is where I think it would be of great it would be very precious to collaborate with a group like Race to organize ways in which the sharing and the imparting of these tools can be facilitated through the platforms. And whether it's a teacher who takes them on board for themselves and then decides to filter them through into the classes, or whether it's a parent that takes them on board for themselves and then can share with their children, or even team leaders within schools. It can be taught in workshops. I'm actually giving workshops at the moment to groups, and I'm seeing how it can work with groups. And that's a way of giving it to 4 or 5 people. And then if these 4 or 5 people take it on board, they can then share with each one of them 4 or 5 people more. That's the approach I want, because someone mentioned shouting it from the rooftops. I feel that this is gold dust, this information about inner resources, about knowing how to have an approach where I'm going to go back to the kite surfing, and you meet the waves as they come and go. And yes, what Carla was saying about wrapping the kid, you can't wrap them up in cotton wool and then fling them out into the world. You have to break them in gently. And I do think that course that they're on, that intensive course of teenage years, is so, so, so intense. My mission here is partly fueled by my memories of what that was like as a teenager myself, and how I would have liked to have some of these tools and this philosophy. So, yeah. That's my answer to your question.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, and more than that, because I love when you said that it is all about experience, what we gain, and what we can impart towards our children and the future generation. And as you said, my mind was going into like it's a chain. It's not about just 5 people. It's those 5 people will go ahead and affect 5 more or 10 more or 15 more, and such chain that will bring the change, and that will bring the empowerment towards any society. So thank you for sharing that with us. Carla, yes, uh, what's your thoughts about uh, race resilience and life skills all coming together and the platform race?
I think the most important part about it for me is all about that dialogue that happens between the adults before the kids, because I think kids know how to live life. I think teenagers know how to live life, and we get in their way, actually. We're the ones who sort of forget somewhere along the way, and we make it about something else, and then we stress them out and make things difficult for them. Well, that's what I found in my years as a teacher and a parent. Anyway, maybe that was just me, but I definitely think that we have to have a dialogue, a positive dialogue that happens all the time, continually around these concepts. And we have to make a sort of a shared language, I think. I think for years, if you were working as a teacher, we used to mention this thing about shared language in the professional environment, and we'd come up with all these acronyms and all this fancy language, but there was never a shared language between us and the parents. And I think that race is exciting because it's starting something small, and it's going to have a ripple effect where you have this common language between parents, teachers, coaches, management in schools, you know, and then all of the other people who work with schools as well. And I can see a time in the future where this is just common practice, where parents and teachers and coaches and community and business and everything is all using the same language, sharing the things that they know. There are so many things, for example, that happen in the business world that take people from level A to, you know, level 100, because it teaches them all of these skills. But we never share that in schools, or we never share it with parents. You know, so I think that's what's exciting about race. It's starting that, it's bringing all of the different people together in this shared understanding, this shared language, and this community that will, you know, grow over time. And I think that that is very exciting. I'm really happy about that and happy to be involved in it.
Thank you. It just uplifts us when we see that, and I'm sure people will understand when they see this, that how it is the race is not only about one entity. It is just trying to create that niche which can bring all the main entities of education together. So, any last thoughts, Tamara? Quick, because we have got time for that. Yeah.
Sure, I got 5 C's: care, compassion, clarity, congratulations, and commitment to build resilience. My 5 C's.
Amazing. Thank
That's
you
it.
for sharing that. I
Thank
think that
you.
I'm going to watch it again to get those 5 C's. Thank you so much. Yeah. Annabelle. Yeah.
Well, my parting words are the importance of sustainability and something tangible to take away, because I feel we do talk and we do tap into and resonate with the concepts that we're sharing. But there needs to be the next level of taking them and encapsulating them into a toolkit or a model where you can pass it on, just like I described, 5 people, and then each of these 5 people then share with another 5 people, and it multiplies. And that's the way ahead that I like to see.
Carla. Carla?
I think my takeaway is going to be from Tamara and that word triggers, because that is really sticking with me, and it just keeps coming back to me. But I love that idea, and I think it's something that we need to teach children very, very early on, is for them to recognize triggers and then to go to the strategies or the tools that Annabelle will say, because then it makes sense of figuring out what to do, what's the cycle, what's the pattern, what's the routine, you know, or the habit that they will use to kind of train themselves to deal with things that trigger them, and then develop the resilience that they need.
Can I just jump in quickly and say something about what Carla was saying? Because you spoke about that earlier. It resonates for me, because I noticed that one of my I have a 7-year-old. I have kids that have left home, and I have a 7-year-old, a late child. So it's lovely homeschooling her 50%. And one of her triggers was the fear of making mistakes. And this might sound so obvious, but when you teach them the resilience to accept that and to realize that that's just feedback, and people are testing you, wanting you to try even harder, and if you're making a mistake, that's proof that you're learning. And that's another trigger, the fear of making mistakes. If you can just turn that on its head and show them that they learned something. I'm talking about something extremely simple, but wow, since I unpacked that trigger for my daughter and repackaged it for her, I tell you, homeschooling has just completely changed. So the trigger, I agree, it's getting them into a little list and making them into a toolkit for kids would be phenomenal. Yeah.
Thank you so much, ladies. It's been a pleasure to hear you all, and it's so inspiring to. I mean, we all know things, but when somebody says it again, it just makes more impact, and that's what we are here for, to bring it back everything to the people who really want to do something about the children, about themselves. Uh, what comes in my mind as a last this thing, that we can't stop the waves, but we can definitely learn how to surf on that. And that is what building resilience and building all those skills which can take you further and make your life a successful life, whichever you can afford to build, and be happy about it. So thank you so much, ladies. I really a gratitude from us, all of us from Race, and have a great day. And thank you, whosoever is watching. See you next Wednesday, the same time over here. Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
everybody.
you. Thank you.
Bye.